We are live on ABC's KMET 1490 AM.com. Your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in this morning. On the telephone line, I welcome to the program a former Major League Baseball All Star player who played with the Pirates, White Sox, Expos, Cubs, and the Athletics. We welcome to the program Vance Law. Vance, honor to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
My pleasure, Vance. So Vance, you had a career in pro baseball which lasted 14 years, 11 of those years playing the game at its highest level as a major league player. So I figure I begin. Let me begin with your BYU years. Looking back, playing for BYU, how well did it prepare you for what was down the road for you, the minor leagues?
Well, I think it was really good. I had a very good baseball coach, Glenn Tuckett, who was very influential in teaching me how really to play, at least the BYU way, and that was always hustling, always running hard. That was absolutely a prerequisite to playing at BYU. That was kind of the first inkling that I had that. If you're going to be good at this game, you need to play the game hard. You need to play it fundamentally sound, and that really, I think, helped me prepare for what was ahead.
And, Vance, it must have been a destiny. 1978, drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates, the same team your father, Vern Law, played for when you were a child. The Pirates drafted you 39th pick in 1978 June draft. If you could talk a little bit about that draft day, where were you at the time? What were you doing? Your reaction to getting chosen by the Pirates, etc.?
Well, my senior year at BYU was a very good year. I played very well in all the national tournaments that we had. I played very well against Arizona State when we played them in our conference championship. There were a lot of scouts there. Come to find out, they were mostly there to watch Hubie Brooks and Bob Horner, Gary Pate. Or Bobby Pate rather. A lot of really good players on Arizona State, but I really felt like I had a very good year and had a chance to go fairly high in the draft. First day went by, not a call. The second day went by, not a call. Third day, I'd pretty well given up on what I thought my dream was going to be, was playing professional baseball. I was married, thinking, this was going to be the way to, my occupation to provide for my family. And the third day came, and I finally was watching the news on television, and that's where I heard the announcement that I was drafted in the 39th round. And I was very elated. I was very discouraged going into that third day of the draft, but when I heard my name was that I'd been drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates, I was grateful that I had now just the opportunity. There was not going to be any signing bonus, no money involved at all, just a plane ticket to Bradenton, Florida, and and then it was up to me to show what I could do. So it wasn't until the following day that I got a call from the minor league director of operations, Murray Cook, and he, gave me the specifics on when I needed to fly out. So it was kind of mixed feelings. I had real high hopes, and then they were dashed, and then I got another opportunity, and at that point, that's all I wanted, was to have an opportunity. So that's kind of the way my draft day went. But I figured I was the 39th round pick, so when I got to Bradenton, Florida, I thought there were going to be 38 players that were better than me. And to be very honest, there wasn't one player there that I thought would make my college team. I was by far, in my own opinion, and I try to be as humble as I can, but I was by far the best player there. And after you have about 4 or 5 days of workout, then I played one game in rookie league. And after that one game, I got called into the office and said they wanted to see if I could really play, and they sent me to high A, and that was where my basically how my career got started in high A. And it was a very good brand of baseball. They played hard. It was a tough road because you're always on the bus. Sometimes you'll play a night game, get on the bus, travel 8 hours, and the next day you've got a day game. And you're playing in the same sweaty uniform, underclothes, etc., because there was no chance that you're going to get that washed before the next day. So it was really interesting. It was tough, but really grateful that I had the opportunity.
Yeah, Vance, and you mentioned high A ball, and I'm looking through your stats. I mean, in 1979, playing at AAA with the Portland Beavers, I mean, you produced very solidly with the bat that year. You had 448 at bats, 139 hits, which came out to like a .310 batting average. I mean, that's a solid performance in AAA. You also led the PCL that year with, I believe, over a dozen sacrifice bunts, I believe. So, I mean, you were consistent. You were a consistent player, consistent at advancing runners. I mean, you knew the game.
Well, I give that credit to my coach at BYU. We played the game that way. Everybody needed to know how to bunt, move runners. I also think I had an advantage because I watched a lot of baseball when my dad was playing. I used to go to the ballpark early with him. I actually played pepper with Willie Stargell and Manny Sanguin, who later became my teammates when I got called up to the big leagues. So a couple of guys that were my dad's teammates later turned out to be my teammates as well.
Wow, I mean, Willie Stargell, I mean, what? Just being around those iconic names, I mean, they must have taught you a lot.
He was my childhood hero because he was a big home run hitter, as people who follow the game know. But he was even a better person. And Willie was just one of those guys that made you feel like you were part of something special. I remember the first day I walked into spring training. I got invited after my first half year in A-ball. I got the chance to go to Major League spring training. And I walked in, sat down at my locker, was just watching all these big leaguers walk by, and Willie came up to me, shook my hand, and he said, "You must be Vance Law, the guy we've been hearing so much about." And he just kind of took me under his wing. And later on, it was Bill Madlock and Dave Parker and Tim Foley and Phil Garner. Those guys were just great to me and treated me like I was a big leaguer, even though I'd only played a half year in A-ball.
That's really amazing, fascinating. Now, also, with the very interesting, that 79 Beavers team, it also had on the roster another second-generation father-son player in Dale Berra. How is your relationship with Dale Berra?
Yeah, Dale and I, he was a first-round pick, so he wasn't he was a first-round pick in, I'm not sure, 74, 75, something like that. So he'd worked his way up through the minor league system also. But, yeah, Dale Berra and I became very good friends. He would play some shortstop. He was up and down that year in 79, but he and I became good friends. He played short, I'd play second. Sometimes he would play third, I'd play short. So they gave us both opportunities, and, eventually we were going to be teammates just for a short time there in Pittsburgh. And then I ended up being traded to the White Sox in 1982, spring training of 82. And then my career, I think, really kind of took off. I had the chance to work with the White Sox with the great hitting coach, Charley Lau, who I give credit to for really any of my offensive seasons that I had. He just taught me so much about the game, how to play it, what to think at the plate, how pitchers were going to approach me according to my strengths and weaknesses. He was just an unbelievable teacher.
We're talking with 1988 MLB All Star Vance Law, who's on the telephone line. Okay, Vance, 1980, you were called up to the major leagues. Talk about how that happened. I understand Jim Mahoney. You got a call from Jim Mahoney. Go ahead, if you can elaborate on that.
You bet. I was actually having a decent year again in AAA. We were in Spokane, Washington, playing against the Spokane Indians. I was with Portland at that time, and I got a phone call early in the morning from my manager, and he basically said, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm just about ready to go out and grab some breakfast." And he said, "Well, you better sit down and pack your bags because they want you in Pittsburgh tonight." So I just couldn't believe it that it happened so suddenly. It was maybe May 31st. They wanted me there to be able to play June 1st. So I called my wife in Portland, told her to please pack a bag for me because we were only on a 3-day road trip. And so she packed up my stuff. I flew to Portland, picked that up, then flew cross country to Pittsburgh. And I was familiar with Pittsburgh because my dad had played 16, 17 years there in Pittsburgh. And we'd picked him up at the airport many times and driven through the Fort Pitt tunnels. And those of you who visited Pittsburgh, you come through that tunnel and the city just opens up right in front of your eyes. And so when I arrived in Pittsburgh, I came through those same exact tunnels in a cab and looked down, and the lights of Three Rivers Stadium were already on for that night's game. He took me down to the stadium. I got to go in, and the ushers there, the people that work there, security, they let me in, took me to the clubhouse, and there was my locker with my name and number, and my uniform hanging there in the locker, and it was a real thrill for me to get to the major leagues, something that I dreamed about doing since I was 5 or 6 years old, going to Old Forbes Field with my father. That was a tremendous memory for me, just going back to Pittsburgh and experiencing this for myself. It's something I'll never, ever forget.
I mean, memories that only one can dream of. I mean, really. I mean, from 79 to 81, actually by 81, I believe you split the season between the Pirates and Portland. And the Pittsburgh Pirates were really grooming you to be their shortstop, right, by 1981.
Well, I'd hoped that was the case, but Dale was still there. And in spring training, spring training is always kind of a tough thing because you start looking around how many numbers they're going to be able to keep. They have to have 25, and usually there was only going to be one, a backup infielder, backup outfielder. And as I looked around, I wasn't sure I was going to fit in. I did make the club in 81. Then that was the year of the strike, and they sent me down to AAA so I could continue to progress. Just prior to the strike happening, and then I got recalled after the strike ended. I think it was a 55-day strike, and so I got to get back up to the big leagues, then showed up for spring training the following year, and that's when the trade took place. But, yeah, I'd like to think that they were grooming me to be their shortstop, but when I got called in spring of 82 into the manager's office, all the front office people were there, and they just said, Vance, we really need to get some additional pitching, and so we have decided to trade you to the Chicago White Sox. And they got Ross Baumgarten and another pitcher. I can't remember who it was. Anyway, I was traded for a couple of pitchers, and they told me to report over to Sarasota, which was very close to Bradenton, to the White Sox.
Yeah, and I'm going to get to 1984, which I still can't believe that the White Sox, they move you for a pitcher, Bob James, who James would get injured and was never the same after you come off a season hitting 17 home runs. But I'm going to get to that. I don't know why they did that. I'm going to get to that though. 1982, Vance, is where the country gets a glimpse of you. Your rookie photograph is produced on, trading cards like Don Ross and Topps. And, you became, 1982, one of White Sox's most valuable acquisitions at the time.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. I was not excited about leaving all my friends in Pittsburgh, plus it was the Pirates that I grew up, loving and watching with my dad there. And that day, I'll never forget when I was traded. I came out of that with tears in my eyes and went and packed up my bag. And word of a trade happens very quickly in a clubhouse, and they get everybody's coming along, patting you on the back. You know, they just all wished me well, and, you know, it was really difficult. But as I left, Bill Madlock pulled me aside and said, this will be the best thing that ever happened to you, to get traded to somebody who really wants you and appreciates you. And so that's what I did. I ended up going there, and it truly was one of the great events that happened in my career. One of the things that and this is a silly thing to think of, but the thing that I thought of most was when I get traded to the White Sox, I got to wear those ugly uniforms that they had. They had navy blue and white, and they wore shorts on Sunday. They had these big collars on the jersey top, and you know, I just thought, man, I'm going to have to wear that uniform. But fortunately, they switched, and some people think they're ugly, but the White Sox still wear them to this day on Sunday. The ones that have socks across the chest in red, white, and blue, and the number on the left thigh. You know, I just thought they were beautiful uniforms when we got those, especially compared with the ones that were there previously.
Yeah, and this is the early '80s, so the White Sox was it Carlton? They had Carlton Fisk, I believe, on the team, right? Carlton Fisk was on the team.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was your relationship with Fisk? I mean, a tremendous catcher.
Very, very good catcher, very good person too. I really enjoyed playing with Carlton. They'd spent a fair amount of money getting Carlton Fisk and Greg Luzinski there to provide some pop in the middle of the order. And but yeah, that team that I played with in '82, '83, '84 with the White Sox, we were really a close-knit bunch of guys that you know, tried to play hard and play the game the right way. The term winning ugly came up in 1983. We ended up winning the Western Division of the American League by 20 games, I believe. And, you know, it was a powerhouse team. We had a great pitching staff. Britt Burns pitched an amazing game in the playoffs that we ended up losing to the Orioles. Richard Dotson was on that team. Floyd Bannister. I believe Tom Seaver was on that team as well, and we just competed hard. We had a really nice pitching staff that carried us. Oh, Lamar Hoyt, he was our number one.
He was good too. Yeah,
he won the Cy Young that year. So Lamar Hoyt was our number one guy. Which, boy, I'll tell you, it was 5 solid pitchers that we had that we could throw out there.
Yeah, I mean, he was good too. But, you know, I remember, I think it was around 1983. Here I am, 10 years old. It was a game that you played, I think it was a June summer game. You collected 4 hits, 3 ribbies in a sweep against Oakland. I don't know if you remember that game. You played so many.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yes, I mean, you played so many, but that's a game I remember. Yeah. You really produced well. 4 hits with 3 ribbies and a sweep against Oakland, June 1983. And then, like you said, I mean, Charley Lau, you credited him with your hitting. What techniques, if you don't mind me asking, what techniques, do you remember that he showed you? Did he, stay back on your back leg, don't lunge?
One of the things that people just don't seem to understand is that in order to drive the ball, you have to get through the ball with your body. And I was a back foot hitter previously where you just rotate on the backside. And Charley basically, and we didn't have the advantages of the instantaneous video that they have today. We had, VCR tapes that we would have to cue back to a certain thing and try to run it as slow as we could and pause it when we got to a certain point in the swing. Today's game is so much different that the video is so much clearer and instantaneous. But Charley, he decided that the right way to hit after watching, he was a teammate of Hank Aaron. After watching Hank Aaron for many, many years, he noticed some things that were similar, that whenever he hit the ball hard, he got to his front side. So it's not a lunge, but it's a weight transfer into the front side. And that's what he taught. And I wanted to hit like George Brett, and Charlie's been given a lot of credit for helping George turn into the hitter that he became once he got to the major leagues. And it really was something that I basically threw out the window everything that I'd learned about hitting and put all my trust in what Charlie was teaching me. And that was trust well spent, I'll tell you that. He was just an amazing, amazing coach and teacher.
Interesting, very interesting. I have a few minutes left. I want to get to 1984. Now, this is, without a doubt, your best year in Major League Baseball. You had a career home run total of 17, 59 ribbies, although 1988 you had 78 ribbies. But then the White Sox, you traded by the White Sox to the Expos in exchange for Bob James. I mean, what was your reaction to that?
Yeah, I was almost planning, my wife and I were almost planning to buy a home in Chicago because I had had such a good year, and I thought I was going to be one of the mainstays for the next few years. But that's one of the things in baseball you never do is, at least we didn't believe in buying a home there because you always end up getting traded. And I was shocked when I got traded. It happened in December in the off season, and I got a call from the general manager, Roland Hemond, and he said, "We're going to trade you to Montreal. We need pitching." Everybody always needs pitching, and so sometimes infielders are the, you know, I got traded to Montreal for that and for a couple of pitchers. But it was a good experience for me in Montreal. We developed a pretty good team, and I spent 3 positive years there in Montreal also.
Yeah. I mean, nothing against Bob James, but I mean, James would come of age by 1985 and was really never the same after a knee injury.
Right. He was a hard thrower, big guy, probably 6'5", 6'6", and threw very hard. But yeah, when I was traded, it was a shock. But they thought they were going to get somebody, but he just didn't hold up very well. And fortunately, a couple of my best years came after I was traded again.
Right. So, I mean, was Tony LaRussa managing the White Sox at that time?
Yes, he was. He was my manager for 3 years.
3 years. So, I mean, did he have something to do with that trade? I mean, Tony LaRussa is one of the greatest managers of all time, but at that time, that trade, I think it was a bummer. It didn't work out.
Well, yeah, it didn't work out, but I don't know that, I'm sure that managers have something to do, but he was very young in his managerial stint, and so I don't know how much more he had to say. He and I had a really good relationship, so I don't know that he had something, and it's never a personal thing. They do what they think is best for the business.
Right. Okay, so being on the topic of Tony LaRussa, I want to get this in. You also play for Tony LaRussa, you play for Chuck Tanner, you also play for Don Zimmer. Out of those 3, who was your best, who was your worst?
Oh boy, none of them were worse. They were all good managers. Chuck, they had different personalities. Chuck was the most positive guy I've ever met. Tony was fairly stern. He was very calculating in his moves, especially with the pitching staff. Don Zimmer was a kind of a hunch manager. He would make moves or plays on the field, but he was very fiery, but also a very good manager. I thought that he did a real good job. He gave me a lot of confidence. I didn't hit well when I was traded. I was trying to do too much when I was actually signed as a free agent with the Cubs, and he pulled me aside, and I was probably 2 for 40 in spring training. He said, "Would you just relax? You're going to be the starting third baseman. You've already won the job. Just go out there and relax." And from then on, I was able to relax, and I'd like to have that vote of confidence. That helped me as a player. So Zim was really instrumental in developing my confidence. I remember, though, as a hunch manager, I had a 3-2 hit and run with the bases loaded in Shea Stadium. So he felt like with 1 out, he wanted me to just get the ball in play, and so he sent the runners. He didn't want a chance of me hitting into a double play. Another time I had a 2-strike count for a squeeze play with a man on third base in the bottom of the 9th inning. We were in a tie game, and he gave me the squeeze play with 2 strikes. Completely unexpected, but fortunately I was able to execute, and we won the game with a squeeze play. But you don't often see those kinds of plays being called by a manager.
Yeah, and then by 1991, you're playing for the Athletics. Again, you're with Tony LaRussa, so you leave LaRussa in the mid-'80s, and then you with him again in 1991. The relationship was still pretty good, pretty tight at that time?
Yes, Tony was he was a good manager, a very good communicator. I didn't feel like my time in Oakland was really well spent. I thought that was going to be a little better opportunity for me, but I didn't feel like I really ever got my shot to play on an everyday basis there, even though I was told that whoever won the job in spring training would be the regular third baseman. And that was the time where Carney Lansford had gotten hurt in a snowmobiling accident. So it had boiled down between me and Ernest Riles, a left-handed bat. And because we had so many, at least this was the excuse that was given to me, we had so many right-handed bats, he needed to have a left-handed bat in the lineup, even though I felt like I'd won the job over Ernie. But, still a positive experience. Just playing and being in the major leagues was just fun. And if somebody would have told me, after leaving BYU that I would have the chance to play 11 years in the big leagues, I would have jumped at that opportunity. So I've got nothing to complain of. I'm just very grateful for the opportunity that I had.
No, I mean, you had an incredible career. And listen, I really appreciate your time this morning. It's really an honor. I remember you I remember me as a kid watching you play on the TV screen. So it's really an honor.
Well, thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate being able to take me back on memory lane.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Good job. Thanks again, Vance. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
My pleasure. Vance Law, 1988 All Star baseball player. Until next week, happy collecting to all.